Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the trial of the century. Today's defendant is none other than Bigfoot, also known as Sasquatch. I'll be playing the part of the prosecutor, trying to get a conviction beyond all reasonable doubt that the defendant, Bigfoot, is guilty of existing. I'll present to you the best evidence to date of eyewitness testimony, video evidence, forensic evidence, and expert opinions, and you, the viewers, will be the jury and get to come to the conclusion of whether or not there's enough evidence to convict Sasquatch. Exhibit A, the Attack at Ape Canyon. In 1924, decades before the term Bigfoot was even coined, on a July night, 5 miners were attacked by a group of what they called ape men or mountain devils. In the days before the attack, they spotted many large tracks, 19 inches long, resembling a human's. The group of men, who were great hunters and mountaineers, could not recognize the tracks belonging to any known animal around that area. 2 of the miners, Fred Beck, and another who he called Hank, spotted Bigfoot one day and shot at it, but missed from about 100 yards away. Around midnight that night, their cabin was attacked. The shaking of the walls woke them up. Through the logs of their cabin, they were able to see several 7-foot-tall creatures covered in hair running on 2 legs circling their cabin, a description matching that of the defendants. The cabin was bombarded then with large rocks throughout the night, thrown by these creatures. At one point, one of these creatures reached their arms into the cabin walls and tried to pull out an axe, but it was positioned in such a way that would not allow it to pass through the hole and go through. The 5 miners would shoot at their attackers, which did little to stop the continued assault. One even climbed on top of their roof, they said. The next morning, they left all their equipment at the cabin, never to return again. Their story caught on in the newspapers, and journalists went on to the scene of the crime and found giant footprints around their cabin, substantiating their claims. The defense may claim it was a local Boy Scout troop playing a trick on these miners. But the camp is 25 miles away, and also the fact that Boy Scouts wouldn't keep throwing rocks when they're being shot at multiple times. I submit to evidence this sworn affidavit by Fred Beck, one of the miners who experienced this. It is called "I Fought the Ape Men of Mount St. Helens," which I will provide a link to in the description down below. It is this court's opinion that 5 people whose testimony all agrees on the sequence of events of this incident should be taken as genuine. On to Exhibit B, the Patterson-Gimlin footage. The next evidence I'd like to submit is the famous Patterson-Gimlin footage that shows the defendant in broad daylight in an open clearing existing. In 1967, around Bluff Creek, California, Roger Patterson and Bob Gilman filmed the startling evidence of Bigfoot's existence. On this footage, you can see muscle shock, breasts, and even possible nipples, facial features, and hands that open and close. Such details could not exist in a costume, especially during 1967. Here's a comparison between the Planet of the Apes costumes from 1970 and Bigfoot. In the film, one of them clearly looks like a man in a costume, while the other looks like a real animal. The North American Science Institute examined the film and determined the subject was around 7 foot 4 inches tall. That's so tall that it ruins all the defense witnesses that claim they were in a suit in this footage. But yet the height of 7 feet 4 inches matches the defendant's descriptions perfectly. And I will link this study down below. Though it's not admissible in court, it is also worth noting that Roger Patterson and Bob Gilman both passed lie detector tests about this event. They even found tracks of the Bigfoot who they captured on the film. For over 50 years, This bit of evidence has stood up to scrutiny of many skeptics and has yet to be disproven in any way. Now for my forensic evidence. Exhibit C, the crippled foot footprints. On December 13th, 1969, 1,089 giant human-like footprints were found leading to and from a river near Lake Roosevelt in Bossburg, Washington. Bigfoot researcher Renee Dinder called in anthropologist Grover Krantz, who took photos and made plaster casts of the footprints. Became convinced of their authenticity. At this time, I would like to call to the stand the experts on primate foot morphology, John Napier, who during his life was widely considered a leading authority on primate taxonomy, as well as Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum, professor of anatomy and anthropology at Idaho State University. He's a world-renowned expert on primate foot morphology and locomotion. They studied the casts and photographs of the Bigfoot prints and found that they had dermal ridges as well as scar tissue on the right foot. Also, they were able to tell that the creature who left the tracks was walking with a limp. No hoaxer would be able to pull off all these feats. 3 scientists and experts in this field all agree that the crippled footprints were left by some unknown primate, which I believe the evidence points to being the defendant Bigfoot. For my final bit of evidence, I would like to bring up the defendant's Bigfoot past history of existing. When determining whether or not an animal exists, it pays to look at the fact of if they did exist before. And I believe Bigfoot, or an animal close enough to him, existed. Exhibit D, Gigantopithecus. Giant Asian ape, thought to be extinct, but matches the description of the defendant to a T. It stands 10 feet tall and weighed up to 1,200 pounds. Though slightly larger than the defendant, history shows that animal species do tend to shrink over time. Only teeth and a mandible jawbone have been discovered of Giganto, being unable to determine definitively whether or not it went on all fours like gorillas or orangutans, or was it bipedal like Bigfoot. But it cannot be ruled out, having never found a spinal cord or leg bones. Perhaps it crossed the Bering Strait along with humans, learning to avoid them along the way, and made its home here for the next few thousand years, being undiscovered. The coelacanth, once thought extinct for over 200 million years, did this, so could have Gigantopithecus. I believe that all the evidence I used here speaks for itself that Gigantopithecus did in fact survive and is what today we know as Bigfoot. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, have you reached a verdict yet? Let me know in the comments below if you find this evidence compelling enough, beyond all reasonable doubt, that we can convict Bigfoot of existing. Put guilty in the comments if you believe he exists, or not guilty if you believe he doesn't. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. And please send this video to your skeptic friends and family to perhaps try to convince them of the existence of Bigfoot. Thank you.